Why is a project like this important to share with the public?
Was it why is a project like this important to share with who, sorry?
The public.
Oh, I mean, I think that Montserrat is the most magical place on the face of the earth. I fell in love with it going there as a child with my family. And so I think, you know, one part of it is it's important to share this story because of Montserrat. And I think that the world needs to see Montserrat and meet all the people. Everyone we've showed this film to has just fallen in love with everyone that's in it, you know, Danny and Rose and Minta. But I also think, you know, right now it's quite a scary time for everyone, and it is, you know, there's a tragic side to the film, but it's also a celebration of people coming together and making art and making music. And so I think especially now it's more important than ever to have a film like this out in the world. And it seems like after people watch this film, they do feel really uplifted and inspired to get together and create music. So it's nice to have something positive in the world when it's been a bit of a tricky time for everyone.
Yes, definitely. And speaking of the music, how do you think that the music back then has influenced music now?
Well, you know, even starting with George Martin, there's no question that the Beatles has probably had the most impact on the musical world more than any other band. But I do think there's a line in the film that you may recall where Ray Cooper says you could hear something in the notes in Montserrat. And I think that there's something really special about the music that came out of there that's made it had this really lasting impact and inspired musicians all around the world. I think some of the sounds that came out of Montserrat, you know, around the Dire Straits, that's the sound that really defined the 80s. And so I think it's definitely had its stamp on the musical world in so many different ways, whether it's, you know, the sound of the desk or it's the collaborations, because as you know, a lot of the local people from Montserrat did backing vocals on a lot of the albums. And so it definitely has its own sort of Montserrat sound, which is nice to see. Now that the film is done, people pick up on that. They say, oh, I can hear Montserrat, or I can hear the local people sort of singing in the background. I think that's really special.
As a filmmaker and someone who has their own production company, there are quite a few people, especially in Montserrat, who are interested in media and filmmaking, that kind of thing. Do you have any sort of advice that you can pass on to us?
Yeah, I think Montserrat for me, you know, we were making this from Australia, which is bizarre. Everybody was saying, why are the Australians making a film about the Brits in the Caribbean? You know, but I think it's finding stories that inspire you, even if they are on the other side of the globe or that are important to you. This was my first big project, and I surrounded myself with people who had a lot of experience, and then I was able to get this film to the next level and bring on Universal Pictures. So I think when you're starting out, it's all about the relationships that you have and people that you can bring in who will really help you bring your project to the next level. But it's also just about being really brave and saying, you know, I might be on the other side of the world, but I've got a dream to make a film about, you know, whatever it is. I kind of just had to go feet first and hope that it would work. But I think in the end, if you really love a story or you're really passionate about a story getting out into the world, it will find a way.
Okay, thank you. And my final question to you is, are there any projects that you have planned for the future?
Yeah, I have quite a few projects in the future. I'm doing 4 films at the moment. None of them are music though, which is sad because I really loved making this music documentary, but they're all, you know, 2 documentaries. One is a family feature film. They're all really different subject matter. So it's quite nice to, you know, leave the world of Montserrat and go into the world of its supercar racing is one. And, you know, I've got another project which is about dementia. And so they're all very, very different. But I'm definitely going to miss being in the world of Under the Volcano, because that was 4 years of my life, of every single day thinking about Montserrat and thinking about the film and interviews and everything. And it was a really special time. So it's kind of sad that that chapter's over, and we all would have been there at the premiere with you guys in Montserrat, which is slightly heartbreaking. But anyway, in another world, we'll come back and see you guys all again.
Yes, we will. I'm sure that we would love to see you again. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question?
Thanks so much.
You? Can you go to this mic here? Just waiting for them to come up, Cody.
Good evening. Firstly, I would like to say that I thoroughly enjoyed the film. And these questions are from a member of the press who could not make it tonight. But he sent 3 questions. The first one, I noticed on IMDb that most of the ratings for the film were given by men. Not many women were recorded here. So I am interested to know if you guys approached Annie Lennox and Sheena Easton to appear in the film.
A lot. And the funny thing is, it was an all-female team film. We had a female director, producer, editor. But then we struggled to have women in the film because, first of all, we approached Sheena Easton, and she said, I'll do an interview, but it's going to be $10,000. And we didn't have $10,000 to pay Sheena Easton for an interview. Then what happened was we didn't want the film to be about every single band that recorded there. We made a decision that let's focus on, 5 bands, their story, so that when you're with Elton John, for instance, you actually understand what happened to him down there. And, that was really important to us. And then as it unfolded, we got to a point with the Tourists, which is Annie Lennox's band, where we were like, well, they don't really have a story sort of arc that we really wanted. And so she just didn't fit in the film. And then, we got to the end and we realized that we only had Yvonne in there and Manetta and Rose. And, it was like, oh God. But what we tried to do, and I don't know if people will realize this, was we were all really interested in a lot of the sort of female, this volcano sort of gave birth to all this, amazing creation. And so I feel like it does have a female touch to it naturally because it was all female filmmakers. But we just couldn't get enough people on screen, unfortunately. There's a lot of old white men in this film, so it's a bit of a bugger.
Okay, his second question. The film came out about 6 weeks ago, so you should have a good idea about how successful it's been so far. Would you like to share that with us, please?
Sorry, so you said the film came out 6 weeks ago. What was the second part of the question?
So you should have a good idea of how successful it has been so far. Would you like to share that information?
Yes and no. I'm still trying to get that information out of Universal in terms of how it's doing. In Australia, it was number 1 or 2 in the iTunes charts for the past 6 weeks, maybe. So in Australia, especially, everyone is loving it. But because I don't have access to, stats in the UK or the US yet, I have no idea. But it has been received really positively. We've had like an overwhelmingly positive response from people watching the film. So I feel, at peace, because it's always scary. You make a film and then you don't think that everyone's going to tell you what they think of it. And then as soon as it's out, you have everyone on the internet telling you their thoughts, which is terrifying. But so far, it's been received really well.
Okay. And the final question. He says, I've been sharing the trailer with fan groups and they are all very impressed with it. No, that's not a question. Finally, are there any plans to get it on a streaming service like Amazon Prime or Netflix?
Yeah, the way that Universal work is generally they put it on iTunes, and so people can negotiate streaming deals. So I don't know what it's going to end up on, but it will be on something, whether it's Prime or Netflix or, you know, Hulu. I've got no idea. But as soon as there's a website called Under The Volcano movie.com, and that continues to update. So people can put in their country and it will tell them within their country where the film's available. So as streamers start to pick up the film, if they type in, you know, UK, it will give them a list of where they can watch it. So that will be updated as soon as we've got some more information.
Thank you very much for answering the questions, and thank you. All the best with the success of the film.
Thank you so much.
I have a few questions. Hi, Cody. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi. So I know I've interviewed you quite a few times now, but one of the things that really jumped out to me whilst watching the film before and now is how did you manage to get your hands on so much historical footage? Did you hear that?
You were saying, how did I manage to get my
How
hands?
did you manage to get your hands on all of the footage of Plymouth and all of the footage from the artists and stuff like that?
Oh, it's a little bit faint, Vinay. How did I manage to get my hands on what, sorry?
On all of the historical footage of Montserrat, including the footage of the artists and also Plymouth.
Yeah, okay. I think what you said was, how did I manage to get my hands on the footage of Montserrat and of the artist? And I'll just go with that one if that's what the question is. But
Yes.
we were so lucky that we had David Lee in Montserrat, who has his treasure trove. I don't know if he's there tonight, but his absolute treasure trove of archive of, you know, the volcano and the footage of Montserrat in the 70s. We got off Kino, I think that it was, which is all that beautiful, colourful footage and the carnival and all of that, which is just incredible. We had to license that from somebody, but Gracie, the director, and I would get that footage and we would sit there for hours trolling through to make our picks of what we wanted to be in the film. And there's just some beautiful footage of Montserrat back in the day. It is really incredible. And Plymouth, when it's all colourful and you would have seen the women with their bags, it's just incredible. And then the footage of the artists, that came from a lot of the artists themselves. So Paul McCartney gave us his home video footage and Stuart Copeland gave us his home video footage. And then we had to license footage from MTV and all music videos and all sorts of places. So we actually had somebody on the film whose job it was just to deal with all the archival material. It's a full-time job in itself. She was 12 weeks full-time, just sorting through old footage and photographs and talking to people in Montserrat. And, you know, her name is Lisa Savage. David will remember her well. So yeah, it's a huge process when you're dealing with archival material and, you know, making sure that you keep it safe. Judy Martin gave me her whole photo album and I took it back to Australia, and then I was I was so scared that I was going to lose her photographs, and I had to make sure that I sort of shipped them back to her as soon as the film was done. So yeah, it's a full process.
Thank you.
I hope that was the question.
That was the question. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the questions I wanted to ask as well was, how did you approach the interviews? Was it more of a conversation, or did you go into the interviews with a script?
I think that was, how do we approach the interviews? Is it more of a conversation, or did we go on with a script? Was that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we always had a set of questions that we were really, you know, that we needed to get out because, for instance, if it was the police, we knew that we needed to ask about every breath you take and whatever it was. So we had a set of questions, and those set of questions were written by Gracie, the director, myself, and also our editor, because our editor, Karen, would sit there and say, oh, you know, when you interview Rose in Montserrat, you have to ask her about, you know, what happened with the volcano or whatever it was. So that was always really heavily scripted. And then what would happen on the day would be Gracie would ask the questions. I would sit behind her out of the way and I would take notes and I would cross-check that she'd asked everything. And then if there was any other questions that I thought were really important that were missed or that, you know, brought up any memories for me, when we would sort of take a break and I would go over and say to her, make sure you ask about this, that, and the other. But yeah, everything was really heavily scripted to the point where we interviewed Ray Cooper, who's the guy with the glasses, the bald guy, who didn't actually record in Montserrat, but we met him in Sydney, and he was really good friends with George Martin. And he said to me, you know, I'll do an interview if you guys just need some context about who George was, because we didn't have enough material on what George Martin was like. So in that case, we had scripted everything before we sat down with Ray. We knew exactly what we wanted him to say. So it was kind of different for each person.
Brilliant. So I'm not going to ask you too many questions because I know the audience is a little bit tired. But one of the things that's really important to me is about empowering the youth and the next generation. So are you willing to assist us here on the island with mentorship or providing internships and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. It's how I, you know, started in my career, was through mentorships and people helping me. So yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Wonderful. I know the Arts Council is here, so hopefully they'll reach out. So my last and final question, and I think it's exactly how the documentary ended. Do you think that the studio should be refurbished or should we allow it to go back to nature?
Well, I think that the studio should have a viewing platform where people can go and view it. You know, I think it should be sort of where the pool is on that jungle side, because I think that people want to see that place. So much amazing music came out of there. And I think that it would be quite a lot to restore that property as well. Having walked around it, it's totally overgrown and you've got to be careful where you step. You go through the floorboards. So I just think it should have somewhere where people can view it at their own distance. And, you know, as Judy said, it should go back to the jungle where it came from. And I think there's a really important message in that things have their period in time and we've got to learn to let go. I think it's really important. So yeah, I would like to see something in the middle where people can still access it, but maybe not fall down and fall through the floorboards.
Brilliant. So what does the future hold for Cody Greenwood?
Hopefully another project on Montserrat at some stage. I
kind of lost you there.
But no, I think more films, hopefully more, and hopefully another music documentary, but many more films. I really love filmmaking.
Sorry, we didn't hear much of what you said just now because the connection was a little bit weak. Can you just repeat that for us?
I was saying that hopefully the future holds another film in Montserrat. If anyone's got an idea that will get me back to Montserrat, please tell me. But no, just making more films. I love what I do, and so hopefully many more films in the future.
Is there anything the final words for our listening, attentive audience here? Any final words?
What did you say?
So do you have any final words?
Sorry, Vanessa?
Do you have any final words for our audience?
Yeah, just thank you to everyone in Montserrat for sharing their story. And, you know, Montserrat is such a special place to me and to my family. And I feel really honoured that I got the opportunity to tell the story of the studio. So yeah, just my heartfelt thank you to everyone there, because it's really special to me.
Oh, sorry. I have Honourable Cranston Buffing here who would like to ask you a question, so we're not finished yet.
It's not so much of a question, really. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the government of Montserrat for doing something that we probably could not have done. You put Montserrat on the map in a way that only something like Universal Studios and yourself could have done. For me personally, it's given me a different appreciation for Montserrat itself. I'm actually going to see it in a different way leaving here tonight. And also for a number of songs that I've listened to through my entire childhood, where they came from, how they started, and that sort of thing. And just on behalf of the people and government of Montserrat, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
That's it from us. Thank you very much, Cody, for your time this evening. And I hope that, well, this morning, I hope that you have a
Thanks,
wonderful
everyone.
day, wherever you get up to. So take care. Good night. Oh, good morning.
See you, everyone. Bye.
See ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the evening. Thank you all for coming out. And, you know, just before we wrap up, a special thank you to our tech people, Carrie and Philip. I hope I got the names right. And the folks at GIU. Huge, huge help. And I guess tongue-in-cheek, I have to say thanks to Mull for keeping us alive tonight. Everybody get home safely. I'm not sure if there are some snacks outside still. There may be. But thanks for coming. Take care.